I'm Madeline Harsh. I'm a voice actor based in Brooklyn in a rental apartment, and this is a video about how I built my booth in this little room right here. Check it out. Welcome to my booth. This video is about how we built this booth that I'm in right now with plywood and, foam, rock wool, the regular stuff, and then I sound treated it from the inside. This is a step up from a PVC pipe moving blanket setup, and it's a lot closer, I would say, to buying like a whisper booth or something that's put together already, but it is much cheaper. It's a lot more work, but it's this whole thing together cost $1,500 to build, which we did entirely in my apartment. And I'm just gonna get into it because I've never made one of these videos before and I don't know how it's gonna go. Let me know what you think. So I was recording in this closet, which, yes, is only 1 foot deep. And after I put a little shelf to have a little microphone, it was also only about 1 foot the other way. So I was standing in a 1 by 1 foot square, recording some honestly subpar audio, better than nothing, but you could still hear a ton of room tone and noise floor that was coming just from the building and the movements in the building and what have you. And this is how I went from that tiny closet to this beautiful little booth that I love so much. The long and short of how this actually got started, I didn't know how I was going to be able to do this. My dad actually made a plan, which I will pop up right here so you can see kind of what we were working with and our material list. And he surprised me and showed up to help me build this in 4 days. So I thought I was going to actually build it alone, which in retrospect would have been impossible. So when my dad showed up, I learned a lot about framing and just kind of the general aspect of building. So we started with the base. The base is basically every single layer of the booth has plywood, foam, the 2x4s in the middle for the structure, another piece of foam, and plywood. And that's how all the base, the top, and each wall is structured. Here's my dad drilling holes into the 2x4s, and that is to create airflow because we installed an air vent with computer fans. So I still don't have it turned on while I'm recording, but it super helps to cool everything down in between takes, and also sometimes if I'm just auditioning, I can get away with it. You can hear it a little bit. You can use noise reduction on it, but I tend to just obviously have the least amount of sound possible. But it does work, and that's awesome. It even has this very cool little screen, which makes me feel very professional. I live in like a 650 square foot apartment, so it is a 2-bedroom, but there's not a ton of room. We had to take over the living room for this. I tarped off my office, and then I packed a ton of stuff in my bedroom. It was a little bit unlivable for these 4 days, but 4 days, it's fine. So we did all of the sawing, everything you see, everything was cut in my office in this really small space. And then we just swept and vacuumed between each section of work. So the very first thing was making the base. We got that together, put it up, and got all the back walls up. This is a 4x4 square other than where the door cuts off. So it is still quite small, but this is the space that I had. So we built it to the specs that would work in my space. Day 1, we just had to bring all the stuff from Lowe's downstairs all the way up to the apartment, which was a lot. So that was kind of its own day. And then day 2 is where we really got to dig into it. And this is the end of day 2. Day 3, we started making sure that the door was going to fit on right, make sure all the measurements worked with the door like that. And day 3 was actually a half and half day because we wanted to have one fun day with my dad. And so he actually got to go see my husband drive the ferry for NYC Ferry, which was really, really nice. And then we got him some vegan ice cream he wanted to try. After we got all the walls put up, we made this ceiling. The top is a mirror of the base. And this was the only part that I 100% could not have done by myself. And you really do need someone strong to do it. This was My dad had held this on his shoulders. It's very heavy, and he slowly walked it up while I was just sort of there to stabilize and make sure everything went in place. And once it was up, we screwed it all together, and that's how the top went on. Past that point, everything was pretty easy. Putting the top on the booth was 100% the scariest part of the whole process. And that took us to a stopping point at the end of day 3, so we were able to have one last night just to crash and rest and try to finish everything else on the last day. And then we had day 4, which was the final day to put everything together. He helped me put up some of the foam inside of the booth that we screwed in. We have this little shelf here that, yes, it is too small for a mouse and keyboard, but again, it's how much room we had, and it works. So at the end of day 4, it wasn't completely done, but it was absolutely done enough for me to have time to make it all the way it needed to be. After he left, we realized it was still letting in too much sound, so I actually had to take off the outside walls and fill it with rock wool. It helped a lot. It didn't 100% solve our problem, but as I learned later, I figured out why. The other thing is there was a little bit of space in between where the door and the walls met, so I am using spray foam here to fill in all of those gaps to make this actually a lot more soundproof. And the point was I didn't want to see any light coming into my booth, so that's what I was doing. The other thing that's really fun is the exterior, which obviously doesn't have so much to do with what other people need to do. But I was given some sample paints from my friend who was painting her kitchen, so she had all these little containers of sample paint, and she gave them to me, so I said, okay, I'll make a little project for free. I've already spent enough money on this. And so I did all these little squiggles, and I put some art on it, and I'm really happy with it. I found that stool downstairs that I use if I have a super long session or I just need a break. The fun fact is I actually painted all of the walls with a watercolor brush because I had already vowed to not spend any more money on it. So all of that you see is done with a tiny hand brush, which was dumb. So there we go. The quick walkthrough of what this booth actually looks like whenever you're in and it was completely finished. I carpeted the floor with a thick, kind of velvety material that my mom just had left over, so I didn't spend any money on that. And it was actually scrap, so I had to be a little creative, but I fit it to kind of the best I could and then just used a staple gun to get it all into place. If I could do it again, I would have put memory foam under the fabric because it's better than plywood, just standing directly on the plywood, but it's still, your feet do kind of start to hurt after a while, so I would have recommended putting something squishy underneath so it's actually, and you could also just have a rug, but I like the way this looks, so I'm gonna put memory foam underneath. This is the size of it. If I stand in the middle and I have my hands out at either side, that's about how much room I have, so not a ton, but this is, a tiny Brooklyn apartment, and that's what I had room for. If I reach my arms up, I have 6 inches to the top of the ceiling, so a taller person than me, 5'3", it's still a little cramped, but I'm good, and it's built for me, so that's what matters. I have my Rode NT2A condenser microphone, my Scarlett Solo preamp. The biggest difference I've noticed is, I'm getting comments on the quality of my audio. So I actually did a very well-known brand that they used my audition and said that was good enough quality for their entire video. It was broadcast quality, which was amazing, especially because technically it's not. It's really, really close. The room tone, as you can tell, is really good. But technically the noise floor is a little bit too loud. The noise floor is negative 55 dB because what I learned is even though it cuts out all the high frequencies, it cuts out a ton of noise. There's a generator in our basement in this building, in this giant building, that is always running. When I was losing my mind trying to figure out why my noise floor was still so high, when the room tone of my closet to this was monumentally different, but the noise floor was still too loud. I was racking my brain. I was taking a bath one day, I had my head under the water, and I heard it, and I was like, that's the sound I'm hearing when I crank up my gain and I'm trying to decipher what that sound is. It's that generator. 100% it's a generator. There's nothing I can do about it. Luckily, it's a frequency that's low enough that's not in my voice range, so it doesn't cut out any of my voice when I use noise reduction on it. But it's always there, and it's not really easy to pick up with the ear, which is why my room tone still sounds really good, but it will always pop up on my noise floor. So maybe that's happening to you. If you're also in Brooklyn or New York or a big city apartment, like a big apartment building, and you don't know what that frequency is, I was baffled until I figured out what that was. So highly recommend, take a bath. See if you hear anything. It might change your life, but it's really good with other frequencies. The sound treatment is really solid. I am by no means an expert. I am by no means someone who can come in saying, this is what you got to do. Just sharing, this is what I did. Not looking for criticism. Please don't come at me. This works really well for my needs. And I just wanted to share it. The whole thing cost like $1,200, like $12 to $15 after little accessories and stuff. So obviously less than a lot of the pre-made booths you can get, more than PVC pipe and a quilt. But if you're like me and my setup, PVC pipe and a quilt is not going to cut it. I mean, even though it's better on your voice, there was just so much noise coming from the street and the building. Nothing cut it. It just sounded so loud no matter where I went, and there was nothing I could do about it. So for me, this was the best case scenario. And that's it. That's the little video. If you liked that, please like and subscribe below if you actually want to see more. That will determine if I make more of these. Comment below any questions, anything. This is my website here if you want to see what I've actually done. And thank you for watching. This is my office, and thanks for watching this little thing.